Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry. What?
Just because we're on this.
What?
I'm not sure. Did you mute yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I did. Let me do that.
Why do I have so?
Just pretend you're at Miller Park.
Okay, now I did. Okay. Let's have a moment of silence, please. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sherry, could we have the roll call, please?
Erica. Does she have to stay here? How do we do this, Sean?
If she's here.
I know.
Yeah, she's technically, I think.
That's
Virtual?
what I'm saying. Do she have to?
Yeah.
Yep, she's here.
Sean, do
So
they?
I believe
She's
she's
muted.
present.
Okay.
I
Mary?
believe.
Here. Joel?
Did you,
Here.
John, you keep muting and we can't hear anything when you mute.
Andy?
I'm here.
Oh, we can hear Andy. Art?
Here.
Craig?
Here.
Jeff?
Yes.
Bill Warner?
Here.
Jerry Winchowski here. Emily? Here. McKenna? Here.
And okay, so Erica and Andy and Joel, are we good now?
Yes, as long as you stay live, we're good.
We're okay. I am no longer muted on the computer here, so we should be good.
Perfect.
Tom Karthauser to the rescue.
This is an open meeting and has been recorded as such. I do have one person that has signed up for citizens' comment, David Dobbs. You can come up and speak.
And if you just want to speak into that microphone with the one with the green light on, yep, please.
Hi, my name is Dave Dobbs. I am here for my daughter's, with some concerns also originating from some ableism I experienced this past weekend at the PAC by Joel Caldwell. This experience started me to think more about what our kids go through each day, wanting to know when will this end. In case you're questioning what my topic is, it is masks. I am here asking you to change your perspective. While you're all focused and worried about numbers for COVID, what they are and how they are trending, to start to also focus about what this is doing to our kids. Focus on the numbers of what are happening to our kids. The suicide rate, attempted suicide rate, the overdoses, the rising drug use. These are numbers to be concerned with. Start to worry about what is actually happening to our children versus what could happen. Start to focus on the negative effect of mask wearing, the actual risks of wearing a mask versus the risk of not wearing a mask. The statistical percentage of kids contracting COVID versus the statistical percentage of the negative consequences of mask wearing. The fear of what will happen to you if you don't wear a mask to the reality of what is happening to you while you are wearing one. I am a God-fearing man. I believe God created us to interact with other people. In a discussion with a daughter this morning, she made a statement. I don't remember what some kids look like. That's sad. This has conditioned our children not to interact. What do I fear besides God? I fear what these kids are going through on a daily basis and what is happening to them. We have one daughter depressed, not just down in the dumps, teenage, I want to listen to crappy music, depressed. I'm talking about depressed. We're talking about having to monitor daily for self-harm and other issues. That wasn't happening a year ago. I understand things happen within a year, other things, but it is what's going on. We have another daughter who's developed IBS due to stress. These kids are suffering. There's actual statistics and things happening, not problems that we have to worry about statistically, and I don't have time to go into the statistics, but I do have them. I am here to start to flip the script of this narrative. Stop having our kids living in fear. I'm here to ask the school system to start opening the schools up more for these kids. Give them mask breaks. My understanding is they're there all day long without taking their masks off. I might be wrong on that, but that's what I'm told by 2 students so that are in my house, and I speak to them daily. Lengthy mask breaks, not just taking them off so they can catch a fresh breath or to drink water or to eat. You know, they are social distancing. Why is it that we can have them off when we're social distancing and not? I suffer from, I have a health issue. I do have a medical exemption. You know, these kids deserve better than this and what's happening to them. I guess I have one more point if I could bring this up still. The one last thing, the PAC, it's going on its 4th year now, all right? I have been to many productions since the original one. Not one production has yet to make it through without a mic system problem. I'm talking about we have kids that are busting their asses out there and they can't even get through. They have leads that are losing their mics. It's ridiculous. If this was the football program and it was the middle of a game and that clock went off, that would be fixed. If not instantly, there'd be a backup system and it would be handled. You wouldn't be dealing with it 4 years later. The next game it would be handled. I guess that's it, sorry. I just think that it's time that we start focusing. I understand that you do reevaluate situations. It's an ongoing thing. I understand there's a lot of working mechanisms to it. It's not as easy as just bam, we're there. You know, so I do appreciate everything that you guys and gals do. I know it's probably a thankless and endless effort that you have to do. So I do appreciate your time and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other citizens' comments? Okay, we now go to the consent agenda, the approval of minutes of January 25th, 2021. If there are no objections, those are approved. Also approval of voucher numbers 131964 to 132030 in the amount of $2,042,138 and change, and receipts for January 2021 totaling $17,978,000 and change. If there are no objections, approved. The student representative report.
All right, to start us off, I want to talk about Mukwonago Wrestling wrapped up their season recently. Tyler Gable became the 9th state champion in history of Mukwonago Wrestling. He won the bracket at 138 pounds, winning 5-2 in the finals. Along with this, Zach E. finished 5th, and Cody Gable finished 6th. The team as a whole finished with almost 60 athletes on the season, won the regionals, an unofficial Classic 8 title, and went 9 wins and 1 loss on the season in dual meets. So a great job to MHS wrestling team. Moving on to Parkview Middle School, they hosted their annual Battle of the Books competition on February 16th. Teams of 3 to 4 students prepared for battle by reading 20 books over the past few months. They competed by answering questions about these books, and this year's top team was the original 4, with members Anastasia G., Katie S., Jennifer H., and Grace G. These girls will be able to compete against other middle schools for the middle school state title. PVMS also had their Dude, Be Nice week. Students completed as many acts of kindness as they could within 1 week. There was an incredible number of thank you notes, smiles, and general kind acts happening all last week. Lastly, the PVMS production of Aladdin Jr. is coming to the MHS Greenwald Foundation Performing Arts Center on March 5th, 6th, and 7th. Due to COVID, there will be a limited number of people allowed in the audience at 125, but they will be streaming it live too, so you'll be able to watch even if you cannot make it live in attendance.
6 girls from Big Bend Elementary School competed in the Future City competition and won the Best Land Surveying Award. Congratulations to Erin J., Madeline B., Taylor W., Quinn H., Harper L., Nina O., as well as Advanced Learning Program teacher Jenny Kimina. Well done, ladies. 6th grade students created a piece of art to leave behind their legacy at Big Bend Elementary School. This is their 12th year carrying on that tradition. At Clarendon Elementary School, 2nd graders had a virtual visit with a park ranger from Glacier National Park in Montana to talk about rocks, which was perfect during their rock unit in class. Claritin's annual One Book, One School program was launched in February. The book that was chosen was The Lemonade War. Every family received a copy of the book, and the book is discussed daily in class. In addition, students raise money for the MACC Fund, which donates to childhood cancer and related blood disorders. At Eagleville Elementary School, students raised money for a jelly drive, and they collected over 125 pounds of jelly. They are using a new program called Rocket Math to practice math facts in a more fun and competitive way. In addition, Eagleville celebrated their 100th day of school, and on the 101st day of school, kindergartners got a visit from Cruella de Vil and a Dalmatian. Virtual students met Drew Burgoyne from the CBS 58 Ready Weather team during their water and climate unit. At Prairie View Elementary School, they had their Random Acts of Kindness Week. During Kindness Week, they raised donations for Hoover's House and Animal Rescue Center. Rolling Hills Elementary School would like to congratulate Miss Arnold, who is recognized as the Rotary Teacher of the Month. Congratulations to her. They also acknowledge Black History Month in February by spotlighting influential African Americans to U.S. history. In addition, Miss Lang's class had virtual interviews with shark and wildlife experts. With new knowledge, students started debating over how to protect sharks best. Thank you to Miss Time for making that event happen. And at Section Elementary School, they held Staff Appreciation Week. Students wrote on hearts why they love their staff, and the hearts were then displayed for the staff to see. In addition, kindergartners celebrated their 100th day of school, and for extra fun, the students dressed up like they were 100 years old, which is a cute and unique way to celebrate.
Okay, thank you very much. Now for the strategic plan update.
So I have a memo in the packet, and we have a number of people here tonight to talk about our strategic plan and results. As you know, we put together the strategic plan with a committee of staff, administrators, school board members, citizens, and back in 2019. We were derailed a little bit with the Palmyra Eagle situation and also COVID, but we are back on track now and ready to talk about our progress. And so Stephanie will talk about student learning. Dustin Lehman's here to talk about CTE, our college and career planning. Susan is on Zoom, and she's going to talk about the human resources piece, about staff retention. And then Christine Bowden's here to talk about mental health services.
Good evening. Okay, so we're going to start with one of our first goal is related to high levels of learning growth for all students. We concentrated really on tracking math and literacy growth for this and ensuring that all students are having a meaningful learning experience and demonstrating growth over time in those subjects. For each one of them, if you remember, we did a SMART objective that was 3 years out, so where we wanted to be as a district with these by June of 2022. So starting out with this one, we have a little bit of a snag in the process because we didn't do the forward exam last year. In the spring, it was canceled, and obviously with the pandemic and what happened last spring and then coming back this fall, we are still in the process of looking at where we set those goals and making decisions as we move forward throughout the spring and get data again if we want to, if we're going to need to change these goals or if we think we can move ahead with what we had originally planned. But I do want to go through and talk to you a little bit tonight, what I had presented to the Student Learning Committee on internal data that we are definitely tracking to take a look at, the impact that we think the situation has had on our students' learning. I'm happy to report tonight that nationally, while we hear a lot of negatives and years, the setting students years back, that we are not seeing that currently in our district, but we definitely do have some things that we're focusing in on. So the first internal data that we're taking a close look at is our FAST Bridge, which students take every fall, winter, and spring. And what you're seeing up here is the orange represents where students were at. On the left-hand side is the fall data. The right-hand side is the winter data. We haven't included the spring because we don't have that for this year. But the orange graph is where our students were at 2 years ago in the 18-19 school year. Then the blue is last year at this time in the fall and winter, and then the red represents our students this year. So one thing that you're definitely going to see is that we can see the impact of the spring on learning, that pretty regularly the red graph representing this year was down in the fall, which we would have expected probably after the spring, but that in every case that our growth, now that we have our students back this spring and have had our teachers been open 5 days a week, had our teachers with them, that we see some really good growth in reading and math. So this is our reading data. Moving ahead to our math data, the math took a little bit more of a hit, which actually anecdotally we would have expected. The teachers did report last spring that it was a little bit harder to teach math online to students than they were finding it to be with reading. But I'm happy to report that while in the last 2 years between the fall and the winter, that the growth of proficient students was 2.9 2 years ago, 2.8, that this year the teachers have moved and the students have moved 6.7. So we are seeing some growth that's stronger before. Again, crediting that with they're now back with us, and the teachers hit the ground running with them, and we're seeing a quicker bounce back for that. Then in 7th and 8th grade, we have our Aspire reading data to start with. And again, you'll see down in the fall, but that the students we're seeing some nice growth with the students in the time that they've been in the buildings. We are seeing the strongest growth that we have in reading between fall and winter data in the last multiple years. Remember that when I talk about some of the work that we're doing as a 7th and 8th grade team, because I do believe that we're doing some work as part of this goal that is leading to that growth too. Math at 7th and 8th grade has us by far the most concerned, and we are tracking things carefully and having a lot of conversations. You can see how much we had fallen in the fall quite a bit beyond where we saw kids performing in other years in the fall. But again, our growth there is stronger than it has been also. So we are continuing discussions, continuing to look how to support our students there. But we're pleased with the growth given where the students were at in the fall. And then as far as high school is concerned, nationally, I'm sure you're all paying attention to not only in the area, but nationally, the discussion of Fs and students being engaged and what's happening with grades during this time. And so we did track this at the high school. The yellow column represents first semester grades last year, and then the blue section represents grades after the first semester this year. We did break it down into in-person, virtual, and then the total. And then the green highlights the difference that we're seeing. So you'll see in the top column where it says total grades of F that last year, first semester, there were 363 Fs that were given in the high school at that time. This year we're at 406, a difference of 23 more between the two. And again, if you've paid attention to some of the local news around the area, we are faring better than many districts as far as our students being engaged and continuing to learn. And then the bottom column there is the number of students with the grade of an F. So not the number given, but the number of students. And you'll see there that it's a difference of 5 between last year at this time and this year first semester. And then it does list it by grade level too. And this was in the learning committee packet also, because we talked about it there. So we don't have some of our national measures that we usually do, but we are using this data and engaging in a lot of discussions to make sure that our students are not showing a downslide because of COVID and everything there. As far as, I think what we're seeing, I think it's important that our students have been back with us face-to-face since the beginning of the year and have stayed with us face-to-face, minus the 7 days at the high school. That the board did approve a virtual setting that is separate from our face-to-face setting, because those students have teachers who can concentrate on them. We have a lot of districts in the area that chose a learning model where the virtual kids are coming in and out on sometimes a weekly, sometimes a monthly basis of our face-to-face classrooms. I do think it has made a difference that we have separate settings for the students, or again, they have teachers that can concentrate on them where they're at. I think it has been huge that our teachers have chosen, in many, many cases, as I believe Susan presented to you, the board last time, that our teachers are choosing to teach while they're in quarantine, and they're teaching while students are in quarantine. This hasn't been an easy task for our teachers, but they've been very committed to that, and so the progression of learning has been there. And then finally, the technology gains that we've made at as a district, and teachers setting up Google Classrooms, Seesaw Classrooms, so when students aren't there, that they have that progression of learning too. I think all of those things have been key. I told the learning committee a few months ago that I know we can't, adults aren't getting into the buildings as much as we are able to get in, but it is really, truly amazing and such a huge, huge credit to our teachers and our students to walk into these classrooms and see 8 kindergartners on a screen and see 13 kindergartners in the classroom, and to watch a lesson happen pretty seamlessly. And I know for our teachers it's not seamless. They have worked incredibly, incredibly hard this year to make sure that we're seeing the learning gains that we're seeing. But there's a lot of things that go into play with that, so I want to take this time to recognize them and thank them for all of the work that they're doing in the course of the year. Okay, finally for this one then, just quickly to go through some action steps. So for each goal, we had also set up some key action steps that we said that we were going to follow throughout those the 3-year cycle. And so we did establish our data sources and our benchmarks. As I said, we're going to need to go back to those after we see what the data is looking like after our spring testing this year. One of our key action steps actually makes me laugh. We were going to assess professional development needs to enhance, expand, and transform learning through technology. I think we can go check on that in a very, very fast order with the platforms that we've set up, and our teachers' learning curve around Zoom and Google Meet, so kids can join the classroom even in quarantines. Also, we had a key action step that we're going to work on reviewing and refining implementation of our 4K to 12 literacy curriculum. There's been a new curriculum kind of about 3 years in the making, implementation, and we are continuing to do standards work around that. When I told you to remember the 7 and 8 data that we're seeing, which has stronger gains in reading than what we've seen in recent years, I do believe it's because of this work. Our 7th and 8th grade ELA team, led by the instructional coach April Frankman and our CAT chair Ingrid Schultz, and that team has done some really, really nice standards work that they hadn't done as they adopted the curriculum before, and we do believe that we're seeing gains because of that work. So we'll be engaging in that work 3-6 this summer, and then we'll continue to look at best early literacy practices with our Super Kids adoption. 5-6 math curriculum, we've implemented 5-6 big ideas. I do think that definitely was a great decision for the district. I think we're going to see some of our math gaps start to become less, but we are going to continue some work. I just met with the 5th grade team that's implementing this year. We're going to continue some work into the summer around standards with that. And then a 7-9 team, math team, is going to come together this spring and summer also to continue to do some standards work. So we're not just looking at and teaching big ideas, but we're actually looking and making sure that we're hitting all the standards that need to be hit in each level. We are currently beginning to explore an instructional framework called UDL, a Universal Design for Learning, in a very small setting. We have a book study going on in the district with our instructional coaches, some administrators, and a teacher in every building to take a look at that. UDL is really about just meeting every child where they're at and making sure that we continue to grow them. And so we're starting to dig into that. And then our professional development with inclusive learning environments, we have continued to do that. We did the training last year with our admin team last spring, then this summer with teachers, and now we have Peggy Black, our consultant, working in 2 of our buildings with co-teaching teams. So a lot of work, even though COVID has been happening, that we've been able to dig in and get done that I think will continue to see learning gains. And then finally, 3 more key action steps that we had as part of this is to assess a need for Tier 3 interventions. We have in the last year hired interventionists separate from our coaching positions, which I think has been a great decision based both for the coaching, full-time coaching positions, and also for our interventionists who can really concentrate on growing our interventions in a building and not have their attention drawn to other places. We have spent money in the last year on intervention materials and training to up what's happening when our students don't seem to be making progress. And we are continuing to build systems for tracking data. The last 2 bullet points are to come a little bit more. Yes, we have built common assessments, but we have more work to do that was kind of stalled. These are the last 2 points that probably were stalled a little bit by COVID and only being able to fit so much in with the time people have. So that is our Learning for All and Tracing Literacy and Math growth.
Questions for Stephanie?
Do we have this PowerPoint somewhere?
I believe that it was
It's a
in.
link in the board doc.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a link.
It's linked in the doc? Yep.
It's 43 pages if you want to print it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Warning you.
All right.
Turn that
Good
one
start,
off.
Dustin.
That's a great start.
Maybe you want to sit where Stephanie is.
Yeah, just
Let's do that.
Turn one of them off.
Is this better? All
It
right.
is.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk a little bit about our strategic goal of having every student college and or career ready by the time they graduate from Mukwonago High School. So our goal statement was the Mukwonago Area School District will equip all students with the opportunities and skills necessary to determine and pursue their desired post-graduation plans. Our year 1 SMART objective, by June of 2020, 25% of our graduating seniors will get at least 1 industry recognized certification, or IRC, by the time they graduate from Mukwonago Area School District. As you can see, our results, we had 165 total certifications earned by 101 different students, so that came out to 26.5% of our students graduated with an industry recognized certification, so we met our goal. That number should have been a lot higher, however, we weren't able to do a lot of the certifications that we had planned for last April and May due to being virtual, just because of the needs of a lot of those certifications are done either in person on machines or they're on PCs. So those students we're hoping to get caught up this school year. And then our year 3 SMART objective is going to be 50% of those graduating seniors getting an industry recognized certification. And some of the new certifications that we have in place for students this year that we're adding that we didn't have in the past were OSHA 10, saw blade, Autodesk certified user, which some of our students in our engineering program will do, and Adobe certified associate, which some of our students in our engineering programs and also our graphics programs will have access to those, as well as some students in our business. Some of the certifications that we look to be adding here in the near future, multiple NIMS certifications, so those will be manufacturing certifications, We look to bring that in with our new academy that we plan on rolling out here in the next year and a half. Pro Start, that's going to be in our culinary program. That's the capstone there. The Ask certifications will be in our business and marketing program. And then the FANUC certified robot operator will be in our advanced manufacturing and our engineering program. So how are we going to meet that 3-year SMART objective? We're assess and refine the 6 through 12 ACP process. We talked a little bit about that last month at the meeting. Expand community partnerships for the work and capstone experiences for all students. We continue to review our learning pathways and expand our academy options. Increase parent education about pathways and options for 4K through 12 students, and assess needed learning spaces for the 4K-12 21st century experiences. All right, so assessing and refining the 6 through 12 ACP process. In the fall of 2019, Parkview and MHS implemented a new initiative called Muck Ready. A committee of teachers at the high school put together lessons for each grade level utilizing the online platform Zello, and counselors at Parkview developed their Muck Ready lessons that they deliver in certain classes throughout the school year. High school students complete the college and career prep lessons monthly during their advisory time, and these lessons are refined each school year. Expand our community partnerships and our work and capstone experiences. So this last year we have solidified a partnership with Fork in the Road and also with IDC, as well as multiple other partnerships that we've solidified over the last few years. We currently have 32 students signed up for a youth apprenticeship within the community. Multiple other students are doing an internship or just another work type experience. That number's actually down a little bit this year. We're typically in that 45 range, but we do have until the end of March to still sign students up for YAs. COVID has slowed some of our on-site experiences. Some of the experiences that we had planned for with the Academy of Medical Professions, just due to the nature of them being on-site with hospitals, have been shut down. But our teachers have been very creative with creating virtual experiences, like Mr. Art Schneider saw today with the IT Academy, doing their virtual field trip with GE. Normally is on-site. They were able to do that virtually today and still create a really cool experience for the students. And then 2 new capstone courses will be implemented between now and the 2023 school year, something within the engineering and advanced manufacturing pathway, as well as we plan on updating our healthcare capstone. All right, so review articulated learning pathways and expand academy options. Pathways are reviewed and revised each school year. Our second academy opened up this last school year, AMP, Academy of Medical Professions. Our third academy was just approved to kick off for the 22-23 school year, which will be the academy focused on the skilled trades. And then our IT Academy, which is our first academy, still continues on a strong path, and with the help of their advisory board is always looking for better ways to support their students. This is one that needs work. Increase parent education about pathways and options for 4K through 12. I do feel there's a number of parents that are aware of the options that their students have. However, I think this is something that we can always continue to work on. This summer, that's going to be a major focus of mine, starting with a social media campaign, but also creating one central location for our students, families, staff, and employers within the region to be able to access what we have to offer at Mukwonago High School, so that it's all in one central location. We're hoping that employers will be able to post jobs there, parents can access that, and I'm hoping it can be something that even graduates can come back to look at that to see what is available within our area. So that's something that I have a goal to try to do, and I would like to try to build that through Qualtrics. And then assess needed learning spaces for 4K through 12 21st century experiences. So currently we are completing a long-term facility needs assessment with Bray Architects. Some of the areas that we have updated to address the college and career readiness have been our high school referendum project, a major focus on our CTE spaces there. We put in a Parkview Fab Lab. The section library project was another project that was done within the district that has really helped move us forward with our students, just really being aware of what careers are and what their opportunities and options are. And then areas that we are looking at still updating in the near future, potentially a tech ed expansion to try to alleviate some of the stress that we have there with students being denied into our programs just because of the lack of space and the popularity that has brought on. And then also creating a CNA training/testing center right here in Mukwonago. We have usually around 25 to 30 students each year getting trained to be a CNA. And it's been a struggle trying to find placements for them. They're kind of all around southeast Wisconsin. Some programs are free, some programs are up to $1,000. We're working on a partnership right now that will be consistent, and the students will be able to be all together as Mukwonago High School students, and we'll probably be bringing in some students elsewhere as well. But that's going to be taking place probably in Elkhorn Gateway campus this year, but we would like to try to bring that training right here at Mukwonago so the students don't have to travel, and to make that free for our students as well. So that is the college and career readiness update. Any questions?
You said your youth apprentice were down. Is that because of number of students or number of placement places?
It has to do with places and I think students as well. It's a combination. Some students, they're just not getting out and working right now. They're not taking advantage of that during the school year. A lot of that's due to COVID. A lot of that is just due to just being extremely busy right now, I think, with everything. Again, our numbers aren't extremely low compared to where they should be, but we have been higher. Our healthcare numbers are down, but we had a large number of automotive kids that have always been going through, and that class graduated. So we only have 2 in automotive this year, which we're typically around 15, so that was a big hit. So that's an area that we're looking to continue to bring back up. But STEM is larger than it's ever been before, so that's a good area with our advanced manufacturing in STEM. Healthcare is still continuing very strong. Business is strong, and culinary is also a place that's climbing as well. So there's a positive outlook, and I think we'll be back to where we need to be next year. Any other questions?
I have
All right, thank you.
I have a question, Dr. McCoy.
Yeah.
So your goal, your actual this year for seniors is 26.5%, and your goal for the class of 2022 is 50%. That's a pretty big jump.
The class of 2020 was for a quarter of our graduates, and the
Okay.
class of 23 is going to be 50%.
23, okay, I thought it was 2022.
It's going to be tricky. Like I said, we would have been higher if we weren't shut down last spring. We would have had a lot more students certified just because of the nature of those certifications are on the machines at the school, or they need to be on a PC where they can go on that software, and a lot of the students don't have access to that software at home. But a lot of those testing sites have now since made changes where they would be able to accommodate the Chromebooks. So hopefully nothing happens going forward, but I think we still would be able to accommodate a lot of those tests if there were a shutdown compared to what we were able to last year, just because the testing site, the companies that offer these tests are better equipped as well. But that is a lofty goal to have 1 out of every 2 students have an industry recognized certification. But we'll get there. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, let's see if I can get a clicker and a microphone to work at the same time. All right, so my part of the strategic plan is to look at utilizing best practices to support and enhance students' social and emotional growth. So I just want to go back just a little bit here just to recall what I updated the board with last October. So we had talked at that time when it looked at a coordinated system of supports, K-12, that we were doing the trauma-informed care modules at that time through DPI, that we had started a partnership with Cornerstone that we were looking to expand. We had the SOAR alternative site in place. We looked at elementary staffing, so we had put a full-time pupil services staff member in every building, every elementary building. So jumping ahead, looking at our key objective of social and emotional growth, the strategic plan asks that we identify student data collection tools such as surveys to gather baseline information. Just flip my own page here. So I have 3 sources to share with you tonight. The first source is that each building collects K-12 data on mental health needs throughout the year, and then that information is reported and kept in a confidential area that we can look for trends and make sure that we're providing the needs and assessing the challenges of the students that the students are facing. The second source is our alcohol or other drug-related data. This includes vaping also under tobacco-related occurrences. And the last piece of information is from the high school. So the pupil services staff and bar team provides a student survey, and they collect information 9/12 on student-identified strengths and needs. So I'm going to go through those 3 pieces of information first. So taking a look at our student mental health data, there were 3 themes that stood out the most over several different areas that we collect on. The first was suicidal ideation, so thinking about suicide but not following through. When we looked at that data so far across the district, we see an increase at the elementary level. And then the area of self-harm, again, we collect at K-12, but we do see an increase of self-harming behavior at the middle school level. And then we do see inpatient and outpatient treatment K-12 for students across the system. I can share more of that in closed session. We also have our alcohol or drug abuse data, and that includes vaping. So if you're looking at the September to March for the 1920 school year, those occurrences are laid out here. We had 10 tobacco-related, 2 alcohol, and 6 drug-related in the 1920 school year. And then from September to February of this school year, we've had 17 tobacco-related offenses. And again, when you think about tobacco, think of vaping. 6 alcohol-related issues and 2 drug-related issues. So part of that baseline information, like I referenced before, is talking about the student data lens from the high school. So I opted to look at 3 in particular pieces of data. The first one that I'm highlighting is depression. So 869 students took the survey. So 46 students self-identified struggling with depression. So although 46 out of 1,500 kids might seem relatively small or a small percent, it's very real and very challenging for the students and the families that it impacts. The second piece is looking at data. So again, I want to just reiterate that these numbers are coming from students, they're not coming from the adults. So we had 75 students identify that they're struggling with anxiety. And the next piece of data that stood out to me that hadn't before was self-esteem and self-image concerns. We had 54 students identify wanting to have support with improving their self-esteem or self-image. I do have to wonder, and I don't have the data to support this, but I do wonder if there isn't a correlation between self-esteem, self-image, and social media. Some additional points that were included are listed as divorce or separation, personal illness, family health issues, drug abuse with a parent or a relative, friendships, study skills, grief and loss, and then eating disorders. All of the parts that were, all of the individual subset questions all had student responses in them, so all of them had a response. So I had a lot of doom and gloom data, so I did want to point out that there are some really positive things also happening. in our baseline data. So the Student Relief Fund was put in place in April of last spring when we went into the COVID closure. And so since then, we have been able to help over 75 families, continually be able to help them with groceries and gas cards. And we also have families that we are continuing to help this year. So that has been a very positive impact for our families and a lot of, I don't know, just welcomed community support. So I want to thank everybody who had a lot of anonymous donors, and then we also had some donations from the Lions Club and Lynch and a few other sponsors. So that continues to be a really great thing to share. The second thing we had is in December, we rolled out the Speak Up, Speak Out tip line. The tip line is done through the Department of Justice, so it's not like the tip line we currently or had used in the past, which was just a Mukwonago one. The Speak Out, Speak Out is, like I said, is run by the Department of Justice. It's monitored 24 hours a day and always has somebody who's responding on the other end. So when a tip comes in, it goes to the DOJ line, and then it also goes out to whatever administrative staff are on that on the list for that school. So far this year, we've had 18 tips, and so that's from December till now. The 18 tips included concerns for students with regarding mental health. Some of them resulted in doing like wellness checks to homes, substance abuse, and then social media concerns, just to name a few. And actually, kids have been really, I think they've been utilizing it because A, they know it's, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's run by the Department of Justice, and it is completely anonymous, and that it does not filter through our system at all. All right. We know the importance of students building relationships in schools. Parkview Middle School collects data 3 times a year on 8 different questions. This one stood out to me from a mental health lens. The last 2 years, you can see in the trending up of the blue, red, and yellow that there's a positive upward trend and that our staff and students continue to build relationships in our buildings. The next piece is just looking at our current MHS supports. So this year, we have the following groups that are listed out. So we have 22 students that self-selected to be in a group just working through going from middle school to high school. 21 students working on stress management. We do our grief and loss group twice a year with the Healing Hearts. We have our study skills and then our social skill groups as well. Okay, so part of the key objective was also to conduct a comprehensive needs assessment and then identify where we needed support and resources. So part of that baseline data also included looking at our social emotional learning curriculum. So we are in process of reviewing that curriculum this year. A couple of things that stood out so far in discussion is really digging in with students, especially at the elementary level and middle school level, about that digital footprint. Our students are on devices at a much earlier age, and so I think just really reiterating that what you put out there is permanent. At the elementary level, moving up would be a really great step forward. We also recognize that transitioning from the elementary to the middle school is an area that we need to work on. We really have, is 6 with Eagleville? 6 elementary schools feeding into one middle school. And so if you think like from an Eagleville perspective, you have 20-ish kids who are going in and then blending with the 5 other schools into one large middle school. And so just looking at which students are seen the most at the middle school level and then correlating that back to their elementary schools. We know that that's an area that we need to strengthen. And then also another identified area that we need to work on is just looking at our small group curriculum when our pupil services staff are working with students. We also began implementing the pupil services evaluation system through DPI this year. The Pupil Services Framework and Evaluation System provides specific feedback to pupil services staff and specialists that is relevant to the work they do. So it's not the same as a teaching framework. It's specific to pupil services staff. So I talked a little bit about the gap analysis, what we went through already. And then what I'd like to talk about next is just our plan moving forward. So one of the partnerships that I'm really excited about is to be partnering with Your Choice. Your Choice has come in and done other presentations for our district parent nights at Brooklife and I think even at the PAC. We decided this year to pursue, just recently, putting Detour. There's a class called Detour that's put on through Your Choice. Detour is a 8-hour course for students face-to-face and a 2-hour mandatory parent meeting if a student is found in violation of our AODA policy. It's really meant to be a proactive measure, and we're putting it in place for students 7-12. So in lieu of having numerous days of suspension, we would much rather put students' education first and have them become educated on whether it's vaping or alcohol or drugs. So I have a little bit of a further explanation in the PowerPoint if you'd like to read that. The cost of the course is $175. We are currently paying for students to enroll in the program. We had funds donated specifically towards this cause, and so right now we feel that we'll continue to support that. We think it's just important that we educate versus just react. Currently, since implementation, and that was just like a month or two ago, we've had I know we have at least 4 students currently enrolled and have successfully completed. Our next partnership that we are going to be implementing is with the Gals Institute. So the Gals Institute is a collaborative group of clinicians. They are based out of Delafield. They work with some of our area school districts such as Oconomowoc, Kettle Moraine, Pewaukee, to name a few. Their goal is to bring prevention programs and therapy into the school systems. So this is different from Cornerstone in that the Gals Institute will be equitable for all students. So Cornerstone, as you know, primarily works with students on the school sites if they have insurance that covers that cost. With the Gals Institute, there'll still be a third-party provider in that it'll run through the insurance, but if a student cannot, for whatever reason, access services because of insurance, we will pick up the cost of that for 6 to 8 sessions. The Gals Institute is giving us a pretty significantly reduced rate and sliding fee so that we can make sure that all students have the opportunity to receive the therapy or counseling that they need. So the Gals Institute provides therapy in a variety of areas that school clinicians or school personnel cannot provide therapy in, such as eating disorders and substance abuse, and then a few other areas I can't think of right now. The other thing about the Gals Institute is that they specialize in a wraparound approach, so not only working with the students, but also working with families, which we know is really important. Part of our next steps for social and emotional growth is we are applying for a mental health grant. Under the mental health grant, we are looking at implementing a person at the high school, 8:30 to 3:30, 1 day a week. That will be what is considered to be a mental health navigator, and that cost would be done under the mental health grant. That person would be sort of like the soft touch between students who are going inpatient or have intensive outpatient and then to the school. So oftentimes our students will go into treatment and be there 1 day and then in the next day already be back in school. And that's really hard for our students to be able to make that shift. The other thing that's hard for families is that when students leave treatment, they need to go ahead and find resources as a family on their own to continue supporting their child. So the mental health navigator would be that soft touch and would continue to reach out to the community, set up those appointments, help them get started. The AODA grant that we are waiting for would help us do proactive things such as bringing Your Choice community partnerships into our schools, providing AODA curriculum, And then also we'll pay for the cost of putting vaping sensors in all of our bathrooms at the secondary level. We will continue to look at SOAR and that alignment and monitor student success, looking at the rubric that I had talked about at our January meeting. This fall we'll implement the GED 2 program. We'll continue to build those community partnerships with Gals in Your Choice, so this year will be a good time for us to start collecting that baseline data. We want to monitor that data so that we reduce the recidivism so that our students are not repeat offenders. We want them to be able to get the help and the services that they need, and that we're not creating a cyclical loop of behavior. And then our last piece will just be to continue to work on professional development. A lot of our professional development that we had planned for this year, although we were really able to do more than we thought we would be able to, we had much more planned, so we're looking forward to this summer and then next fall to implement some additional professional development. So as Stephanie mentioned, we did do work on inclusive practices. So we started that work in December with the admin team, and as Stephanie said, we also worked on that through the summer, and we're continuing to work on that this school year. We are working with the nonviolent crisis intervention training, is what we use for our seclusion and restraint, but we focus on the de-escalation and verbal strategies for supporting challenging behaviors. We've been doing that training. We do that with general education, special education, and instructional assistance. We'll continue doing trauma-related care, focusing on how to respond to students during COVID. And then also for our instructional assistants, we've created an opportunity to have like a Google Classroom for learning. Inside that Google Classroom are several different modules with regards to roles and responsibilities, supporting the Gen Ed classroom, working on challenging behaviors, early literacy, and so that is also an additional learning opportunity for our instructional assistants. So it's a lot of information. I'm sure you have questions, but I am really excited about all of the work that we're doing moving forward, and I'm super thankful for the pupil services staff that we have. They do an excellent job. So thank you for supporting mental health and social emotional growth moving forward. Like, it's a huge passion of mine, so it's great to be in a job where I get to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
Hey, can I ask a question or make a comment?
You have to wait until citizens' comments.
Oh.
Okay.
No other questions? Cherry, you're disappointing me. I thought for sure you
I have what I was gonna ask you later.
Of course you do. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So then the final piece is human resources, and Susan is joining us via Zoom, and she'll explain that.
All right, thank you for letting me join by Zoom. Sean, if you can advance the slide. All right, so the goal of the HR strategy is to utilize best practices to hire, retain, engage, and develop a skilled and talented workforce to serve students, the district, and the community. So I'm going to focus primarily on teachers, since that's where we have the majority of the data, and that's our largest workforce group. So our retention rate from summer 2020 was 92.87. If you can look at the chart, I noted there's two major, we've tracked it for a number of years, so there's two major things that have happened over history. One is Act 10 back in 2011, and then COVID, you can see in just this past spring. So we're down a 0.27 from last year in terms of retention. I don't consider that very bad, since we had a number of last minute retirements that happened as a result of the pandemic. We had an increase in retirements and a decrease in resignations. So the COVID pandemic definitely did have an impact on retention numbers. And next slide, please. So if we look at the if we split out the resignations and retirements, you can see that the resignations have decreased since 2016-17. So over the since the past summer, we only had 8 resignations, and then our retirements have increased. So this past summer, we went from 13 to 16 retirements from the past year. So definitely, we had a number of people take advantage of retirement when they were able to. They probably might have stayed a year or 2 longer, but the pandemic made them change their mind. One of the things I do like to do is to benchmark against other districts, because it's hard to tell how we're doing in isolation. So if we look at the numbers down below are the number of teacher FTE that we have. The orange are resignations and the blue are retirements. So you can see in terms of resignations, we are one of the lowest around in terms of the Waukesha County districts. Only lower in resignations is Hamilton. In terms of retirements, our retirements are higher. We have a large veteran staff, so we have a higher population of people that are eligible to retire in the next 5 to 10 years. So you can see that our retirements do trend higher. If we look in a overall turnover, our total turnover was 7.40. But again, if you take out the retirements, our resignations is lower. But we are trending higher in terms of total turnover. So our accomplishments this year, we had increased staffing due to the virtual learning and in-person dual option for students. So we did take a large number of our existing staff and put them into our virtual learning option, which resulted in us having to replace them in person. We increased our sub-teacher pool through recruitment. We added a bonus for subs that work more days in the district. And then we really did a recruitment effort to recruit more subs into our pool. We do utilize Teachers on Call, which is a vendor service that supplies our subs, but we wanted to increase the pool that would be available to sub in Mukwonago. So that really helped our fill rate. We were able to increase the top of our BA and MA salary ranges for teachers to allow for a little bit more expansion in the people that are at the top of those ranges. We enhanced our onboarding practice, our process for employees with benefits. We've transitioned to a one-on-one onboarding process for staff to allow them a more personalized experience. People have a fear of things that they don't understand, and so spending more time with people up front, helping them make benefit choices that they're comfortable with, is an important process to establish rapport with employees first on, and then help them to feel more comfortable with the district as a whole. And then we implemented an offboarding process for employees who leave the district, both resignations and retirements, to allow them to transition out of the district feeling comfortable with how that's being done and the decisions that are being made. Ongoing work, our next action steps. We need to analyze and benchmark some compensation data. We have been working with some other districts to look at their compensation and how they're compensating their folks. And so we need to continue that work to make sure that we're remaining competitive with other districts. It's going to be important to analyze our turnover of support staff and to develop some strategies to improve the retention of our support staff. we need to develop some consistent onboarding process for support staff to improve retention. I would like to look at possibly a mentoring program so that people feel more comfortable and feel more a part of the district quicker. And then to explore some other options for recruiting support staff to improve a pool of candidates. One of the things we've been trying is we've been looking at using LinkedIn, which is and some other social media aspects to be able to recruit our positions and get a wider network out there. So we're trying to utilize more creative methods since the pool of available and qualified candidates continues to shrink. Next screen.
Is that the last slide by any chance?
That might be the last slide.
Because it's not advancing, Susan, so I hope it's the last one.
Wonderful. Okay. Any questions?
Any questions? Sir, you had a comment that you wanted to make before, and I just thought I'd let you have the opportunity now.
Me?
Yes.
Okay, that young lady, second one, they mentioned about 6 girls that got awards at Big Bend Elementary. But you never said their last name. Said their first name, and it's just the last initial.
The school did not give me their last name.
Well, I'm a school bus driver for Mukwonago.
Well, thank you very much.
Big Bend, and my child has already gone through the school and now coaches golf and softball for the high school. And I have 37 kids that are on my bus. And I can tell you that these things are a nuisance. And starting tomorrow, I'm going to wear a shield. And why? So I can show my big smile. They don't see smiles. You know, and Dave's point of view, they don't see smiles. And I know this only happened in the last 2 years, or year and a half, but I can guarantee you that I see the difference. And when we're the first adult that they see, they want to see a smile. They want to see a friendly face. They want to see somebody that maybe is there because they just had a fight with their parents, or their parents had a fight, and they get on the bus and they see this. I mean, look at you guys. Look around. Other than the 2 that aren't wearing a mask, it looks like zombies.
Which they should be.
And that's what these kids are seeing, and that's what they are living. So, and I don't want to get political or anything, but my narrative, what I truly believe, like Dave says, I'm a Christian man. Masks are a choice. I'm doing it because it's required of me to do it. And I really should, because I'm following the other narrative. But anyhow, something for you to think about is that these kids want to go to school. In fact, I can tell you, when they go on break, there's kids that actually break down and cry. Why? Because they're not going to be with their friends for a week or a whole summer. And I was really shocked when that first happened with the kids. And the more and more you think about it is that that's their life, you know? And I don't know. I know we've been dealt a bunch of malarkey or bad deal or whatever, but the virus is true, because I had it, and I've had heart issues, but I had no problem with it whatsoever. My wife has lupus, she ended up with pneumonia, but we didn't have to go to the hospital. So, and that happened back in July of last year. But I truly believe that more damage is being done to these kids by them not knowing the truth. And look, we don't even know the truth.
Okay. I appreciate your comment. I just want to make sure you had an opportunity.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you much.
Thanks for driving the bus for us.
Jeff,
I love it.
Jill has something.
I'm sorry?
Jill.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff, I just have I wanted to do a follow-up to the strategic plan that was presented, so thank you for your presentations, Susan and the rest of the team. But I want to make sure that we have a date on the calendar to do another review once the school year is ended. So you need to tell us when that's appropriate. I don't think it should be August 15th, but it should be sometime between June and July. Is that reasonable? So think about that, and let's make sure that that becomes an agenda item, Sean, at the right time that you see appropriate. I mean, there's a lot of good information here. I think some of the learning assessment data is concerning, but it's also explainable. So I want to make sure as a board that we're being responsible and paying attention to what's going on, and that if we need to make some changes to this strategic plan, that we're doing it and we're not just being reactive. So, that's it.
Any other comments? Okay, again, thank you for the presentations. It was very thorough. Thank you. Now for the Student Learning Committee update. Sherry?
All right, we had, I think I'm going to ask Stephanie to help me out here, because she mentioned some of the, we talked about the policies. There were no policies to bring to you. We talked about the updates for the assessments, which she's discussed in the strategic plan, but then Ben had quite a bit of information on the summer school that I thought we should bring forward to you, so.
Yeah, so Ben did have a memo in as for the learning committee. Ben has been doing a ton of work to have a full-fledged operational and hopefully extremely well-attended summer school this year. And so many of the plans that were already in place for last year continue to go into place for this year. So E3 will run as usual June 14th to 15th or 17th. There's a lot of K-6 classes that will be offered in the elementary setting again at the high school. Some that were going to be offered last year. He had added quite a few courses last year, almost all of them taught by our own teachers. We were a little bit worried about whether or not we would get teachers this summer given our year, and again, to the credit of our teachers, they came through, and we are going to be fully staffed for summer school again this year. So thank you to all the teachers that have said they would come back and do that. Again, there'll be an athletic performance program for our high school. We are looking at offering the online courses that have been offered in the past, as well as the goal credit recovery, but we are adding some face-to-face credit recovery 9-12 with the idea that we know that the students need to be face-to-face as much as possible, and they've lost out on that last year, and so bring them in. We've identified some classes that we're concerned about the failure rate at the high school, and offering a in-person option also for them to come in and be taught by one of our teachers, making up those credits. And then also new this year, Ben presented that we're looking at an elementary sports academy that he's been working with Andy Trudell at the high school on that, that we think will bring in quite a few kids, grades 1 through 5. And then I already talked about the in-person credit recovery. So we will be opening, they were just finishing up the summer school guide and looking at informing parents and sending that out at the beginning of March.
Thank you. We also discussed special education at Eagleville. However, that's going to be brought back to committee this month, so we'll report on that next month. And we also, Stephanie has discussed with you the 7-12 learning environment changes. So that's it.
So I did want to add to that we do have our K-6 numbers. So there was a memo that showed that we had 222 9-12 students that were continuing on virtual for the second semester, 76 7-8 students. And then we have officially closed the last trimester of students returning K-6. We have 81 students returning in person for the last trimester K-6. 192 remaining. So that ends the year with 490 students, K-12, that are continuing in the virtual setting, which is about between 9 and 10%. And so probably a good time to mention that we will need to continue to talk about that at a board level of our plans in the future, given that 9 to 10% stayed throughout the course of this year. We do plan on running a survey in the spring, later spring, to see where the interest of our families are too.
So to be clear, at this moment, we are planning, moving forward plans to offer K-12 virtual for next school year. We do believe that there may be a number of students that simply cannot return to face-to-face learning next year. We have no idea on what that number might be. There are 5.8 million people in Wisconsin. 1.3 million of them are under the age of 18. And at this time, there is no vaccination plan for those students. 17 and 18-year-olds, yes, but under that, no. So we do anticipate that there may be a need for a K-12 virtual option next year. Do we know for sure? No. But what we can't do is wait until July or August of next year and then make plans at that time. That's too late. We were behind the 8 ball last year because of that, and so we don't want to do that. So as Stephanie said, sometime this spring, within the next 30 to 45 days, we'll start to survey our parents and ask how many are interested for next year.
Sean, can you refresh our memory, do we have a slot in the budget for maintaining virtual at this type of enrollment for next year? I don't remember those details.
So I'd have to ask Tom, and he's here. He'll probably come in. He's on the Zoom meeting in his office, so he'll stop in. He can answer that question. But as you know, we are expecting ESSER II funding, and we're confident that we will have the funds for the virtual offering, yes. Whether or not Tom has put it in the budget and how much for next year, at this point, I'm not sure. But because of the ESSER II funds, we're confident we'll have that money.
Okay.
Are we going to be accepting open enrollments into that virtual?
So right now, that open enrollment students, technically, for next school year, are not eligible for virtual education. However, there is pending legislation that, as a matter of fact, some Waukesha County superintendents have worked hard on to make sure that that opportunity would still be there. We have we have open enrollment students this year that are taking part of the virtual education, and that is up in the air for next year.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, Personnel Committee.
All right, one of the items that we discussed in personnel was a policy review in regards to CBD. And with that, what the Personnel Committee recommended and is sending to the full board is with the CBD product that we would not allow it in the schools for just standard use by any of the students. However, we would allow it on a medical form similar to our Tylenol, our acetaminophen, and different types of medications that are permitted and handled through the nurse's office. In the event that there's a medical doctor standing behind the reason and the use of the CBD, it would be permitted. And then the WIAA has come out and said they are not going to allow it for athletes. And the only question that I had, and Sean, you may have to do some further research with this, is if we have an athlete that does use CBD for, a seizure disorder or whatever the medical reason may be, will the WIAA authorize the use of it if it is supported by a medical doctor?
So Andy, I don't have the answer for that, but so I will have to get back to you guys on that.
Okay. So we discussed that, and then the COVID vaccination updates for the staff. Sean or Susan, I'll let you take that one.
So I can speak to that at the Personnel Committee, and as I have throughout this month, I've sent you emails on our weekly updates to give you the numbers of active cases in quarantines. We're looking really good right now, and then also have talked to you about the vaccination plans, which, as you are aware, are up in the air. But school staff are eligible after March 1st. Unfortunately, at this time, because of supply issues, we don't see a path forward with the plan that we had initially discussed, where we would be able to get our entire staff of 700 people vaccinated on one day by the Waukesha County Health Department. There simply is not enough vaccine. So stay tuned, more to come.
Perfect. And then the special education instructional assisted evaluation. Yep.
Yep. So this was brought as a informational, just as a source of information and update for the board. I want to give kudos to our pupil services team, M. Weber, Christine Bowden, and Chris Agan, for developing this addendum for our special education instructional assistants. What's nice about this addendum includes an updated job description, expectations for performance, as well as an evaluation. So it's really nice to see the alignment so that instructional assistants know what is expected of them for their job, and then how they will be evaluated. So they introduced this at in an in-service meeting to about 50% of our staff who came. It was not mandatory, it was voluntary, on February 15th. We will be getting a copy of this to all of our paraprofessionals, and then on an ongoing basis as well. So this is really a nice start, and it helps with that retention numbers as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Sean. Jeff, that's all I have.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Andy. Now for finance and facilities.
Okay. For finance and facilities, we had a food service update with Pam Harris. We talked about, it'll be coming later, a proposal to increase wages for the head staffs at the elementary schools. We had the budget review. Tom, do you want to add anything to that?
Budget's going really well right now. I have no issues with the current budget that we have right now, so no concerns to share.
Okay. A 2021 Fund 73 quarterly investment update.
It's a positive rate of return. It's not very big, but it's not negative, so we're doing fine.
All right. We went over a buildings and grounds staffing update, and then we did the 2021-22 budget update and a 5-year forecast, of which we all know we can only look 2 years out.
Sure. So I do want to just mention, though, to go back to Jill's question that you just answered before here, the budget that I presented last Monday night, that included K-12 virtual staffing. The one assumption that goes into the expense and the matching revenue is ESSER 2 funding. So that's federal government funding that's going to come our way. We won't know the final amount of that. The initial amount was proposed at $1.975 million. That's what DPI had proposed. The Joint Finance Committee overrode that. And now we won't know how much we get until all school districts who are attending in person submit their data. The pot of money was intended, as the Joint Finance Committee reestablished how it would be distributed, to schools that were in person. So until the school year finishes and we know how many hours or how many days each of our schools was in attendance, and relatively speaking to the other school districts, we won't know if that $1.975 million that we were supposed to get is going to be less or more. I can say with pretty good certainty it's going to be less. But nonetheless, we'll have enough money to go ahead and do K-12 virtual schooling next year.
And then finally, we review a review of Fund 41 and Fund 46.
Shared costs. All right.
We're all good. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
That's all?
Yay.
All right, thank you. Now we move on to action items, appointments, resignations, and retirements.
So we have one retirement that was submitted, and that is John Camps. He's a tech ed teacher at Mukwonago High School, and he's been with us for 6.5 years. So he'll be retiring as of June.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the retirement?
Motion.
Motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jill. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Neola, policy updates.
Yeah, so we do have some policies to review, and if you take a look at your agenda, there are 4 policies listed that are tobacco-related. One's for professional staff, support staff for students, and then for community members who are on our grounds. The important point here, and if you take a look at your folder, you can see the language for these policies. We just included one of the policies. It happens to be 3215. It's the same language for 4215, and the other 2 policies are all, like I said, tobacco-related. And what the Personnel Committee had recommended, if you look at the back of policy 3215, they were not comfortable with the language that had talked about the imitation tobacco products. They were concerned about consequences that might be issued for students or staff who might be in possession of some of the items of like the lookalikes. And so they wanted that language stricken. So Jill, Andy, Erica, I think I'm Art, sorry.
Right.
I think I'm speaking correctly there.
Right, like the big chew. The big league candy. You know,
Major League.
things like, you know,
Thought that was,
Yeah,
plus the kids
the
for that.
beef jerky and the bubble gum.
Yeah.
so otherwise we would be the Personnel Committee is recommending the adoption of the recommended changes from Neola, but strike out that language of the imitation tobacco products.
So the language would be the same for 3215, 4215, 5512, and 7434, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the last item, number 5330, administration of medication and emergency care.
And again, in your folder, if you want to take a look at policy 5330, and what we did here is, again, Neola had recommended some changes to this policy, and we're talking specifically policy related to CBD products. And what we're saying, and like Andy had mentioned, is that students and staff would not be able to use CBD products unless they had a prescription. And then what I did here was added, and I explained this on Friday in my board update, and I included the WIA regulations and also our medical advisor, Dr. Narlock, his recommendation regarding CBD use, and then also the WASB and what their recommended language for policy if you're going to allow students to use the prescription CBD. And I added that language there. Took it right out of the recommended language from WASB. So that is new to the personnel, a little different than what the Personnel Committee recommended. So if you guys aren't comfortable with moving forward with that one and want to take it back to the committee, we understand. But again, it is language recommended by the WASB.
Any discussion? So if there is none, should we vote to waive the first reading?
Second reading.
Second reading. Thank
We
you.
can skip
You have that motion made, is there a second? Motion made and seconded, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, now we need to entertain a motion to adopt the 5 Neola policy updates.
Jeff, I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion made by Andy,
I will second it.
seconded by Art. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Parkview Middle School Master Schedule Proposal.
So Stephanie's here to talk about that proposal. We're looking to keep the same schedule that we have this year.
So we took to the Student Learning Committee a survey that Parkview Middle School had given parents, students, and staff. Majority in each case of the survey of students, parents, and staff were interested in keeping the block schedule. Remember that they were on a different schedule last year. We adopted the block schedule this summer due to COVID needs. But there have been many positives with it in the building, and they would like to dig in and work with that. So they are looking at wanting the board to move ahead with approving the block schedule to stay for next school year.
This is only for one more year, right? We're not doing it we're not gonna approve it every year. We're just gonna do it for this year and then reevaluate, and then if we decide to go that way, then it would be kind of approved for a permanent, is that correct?
We can definitely do it that way, yeah.
I mean, to come every time and,
Yeah, they will definitely continue to look at it. I mean, I think what we want to avoid is going back and forth with the Parkview schedule still.
that's what I'm saying.
So the advantage of doing this now is it is a 2-year process that they will dig in and stay with it versus now returning to something. And given the fact that we can't predict all the needs that may still occur with COVID, it would make sense that we would keep the schedule also for any safety precaution reasons that it was put into place. But they are finding definitely there to be educational benefits in it. So overall wanting to dig in.
Is there any benefit to aligning it with the high school block schedule, or could we not do that because of the lunch periods? Or, I mean, wouldn't it make sense to get them used to the schedule before they get to the high school and keep it uniform, or no?
So as you know, the high school has a different type of schedule, a drop 3. And I don't know if that would work, a drop 3 would work at the middle school. I think that's, so if what I'm hearing correctly is we're gonna propose that we approve the block for 1 year, and then they certainly can take a look at whether or not next school year they can take a look at for 22-23 if they should be doing something more similar to the high school. That's something they can definitely work on.
Advantages to doing it that way.
Well, the three surveys, it's overwhelmingly students, family, and teachers like the block schedule.
They did.
Yep.
And one of the kids references the block schedule getting closer to the high school. So maybe he's wanting it exactly like, but yeah, good.
I make a motion.
Motion made by Chair to approve the block scheduling for next year. Is there a second? Second by Mary. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I think Erica.
Oh, Erica?
if you can hear me well anyway.
Yeah, we can.
I think moving forward, it's a great idea. I mean, I have a 7th grader. We talked at length about if she liked it, if she didn't. My hesitation about revisiting this every year is I feel like if we're voting on this, we need to be prepared to potentially keep it. Because in Learning Committee, we did discuss the need for additional PD for staff to be able to use this longer space of time in a beneficial manner. So if we're going to keep training staff to utilize this time, and then only to next year be like, so do we want to keep it or do we not? Like, we might just be shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit with additional work. So it's just kind of a thought process I wanted to throw out there.
I think, Erica, that's what we were discussing, that we were going to do it one more year so because of the situation and then make a permanent decision of some kind.
Yeah, and I understand that. I'm just saying I think we need to walk into this with maybe a little bit more of a long-term idea in mind than just year to year, because I think it at some point will get detrimental if we keep switching it on students.
Well, I
Even
think,
next year,
I mean, I
because-
personally am thinking that it will probably be that way, but, you know, if we have to just pause 1 year in order for us to make that decision,
I mean, their plan is
nothing different.
their plan definitely is to try to build on it and build a schedule that will be lasting.
Anything else, Joel, Andy?
I'm good.
All those.
Okay,
Yep, I'm good.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is Teacher Personnel Day Proposal for 2019-20 and 2020-21.
So Susan?
Sorry about that, I forgot to unmute. My apologies. So on a normal basis, we offer our teachers one paid personal day per year. And on a normal basis, that personal day is a use it or lose it proposition. So it's not carried over. Well, due to the abrupt switch to virtual learning, a lot of teachers did not have the opportunity to use their personal day last year. And so we allowed them to carry it over to this year with the hope that they'd be able to use it. With the shortage of sub-teachers and the need for our teachers to be here and the number of quarantines and isolations, we really restricted how teachers and when teachers could use their paid personal day. There were only a few opportunities. And so what we ended up with is an increased number of teachers that have not been able to use either one and or two paid personal days from 1920 and 2021. February 15th was the date that we said the last day that we're going to allow teachers to use their paid personal day. So from when I took the original memo to the Personnel Committee on the 8th of February, and then after the 15th, when a great number of teachers decided to take their last paid personal days, we still have a number of teachers that have not been able to use their paid personal day. So we really are recommending that we consider paying those unused paid personal days out. I think it would go a long way of recognizing the hard work that our teachers have been able to do, the commitment that they've shown, and basically, we haven't allowed them to really have opportunities to use it. If you remember, we put the personal day in place as a retention measure, and I'd really like to be able to reward them for that and not have them lose those days. So originally we had talked about either $75 or $100 per day, per unused personal day. At $100, it was originally $33,000. Well, when I redid the costs, we're down to $27,159.31. So I'm recommending that you consider paying out the paid personal days at $100 per unused personal day. That would also zero out our personal days and then allow us to start the 21-22 school year fresh.
Hey, Susan, when they take a personal day, do we have to hire a sub for that day?
Sometimes not.
And the cost of the sub is roughly
$130 or $140, depending upon where that sub is in terms of costs.
So there's some offset there regardless. Okay.
Correct.
Any other?
I'd like to make a motion, we approve this.
Motion made
And
by
I'll
Art.
second that.
I'll second. Oh, I missed that. Who?
Andy?
Andy made a second. Any discussion?
I have a budget question. We're good on that?
Right.
We're good on that.
Okay. It's already part of it.
I
Jerry?
would like to say that I am definitely in favor of paying out, but I do think that we could have done a little bit better than $100. But I just want to go on record saying that.
Okay.
And this is a one-time payout. We're not going to continue this every year.
That's correct. We don't anticipate having to do this again.
Right.
It seems like COVID has given us a lot of excuses Am I wrong there?
Well,
It just seems a lot of outs. That's my opinion.
but we provide this to the teachers normally. We just,
I was
we just
being-
told them they couldn't take it.
Understood. I
So,
was being in general.
Kinda like,
In general, I've heard that a
Yeah.
lot tonight, that's all.
well, this one's here, this is yours, but you can't use it.
Were we waiting for something from Tom, or?
No.
No.
No, he answered, we're
Okay.
good.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Community Programs and Services position.
Okay, at the Finance and Facilities Committee on Monday night, I had proposed a job. The position would be labeled as a Community Programs Supervisor. So this is a position that will be funded in part by Fund 80 and in part by Fund 10. To differentiate the two, Fund 80, again, is a community service fund that would support non-MASD events. So when we have outside groups coming into our facilities, be it Lynch Stadium, the West Gym, any of our gyms, the PAC, in our commons, anywhere, any of our buildings, when we host large-scale events in athletics, dance groups, village players, youth groups, youth sports groups, that burden, when those groups come in the evenings and the weekends, that burden falls into our existing buildings and ground staff. Those folks already have 5-day-a-week, 40-hour positions, or they have a set schedule that they're working. When these groups come in and they need additional support, that burden typically falls on our existing work staff. So sometimes those things are hard to, it's hard to find staff. Our buildings are popular on holiday weekends. That's just the nature of athletics in general, is that the holiday weekends, be it the Christmas time of year or the New Year's time of year, throughout the year, really, we have a number of groups that are trying to access our facilities. So to make our facilities accessible to our community, this position would be the point person to run all things related to hosting these events, from working with the community group to set up their reservations, to understand what their needs are in terms of audiovisual support. That person would be there on site, be the point person, and work those events for those community groups. When those, so this person would work kind of in tandem on behalf of buildings and grounds, technology, and athletics. So right now, it's kind of a shared burden between all those groups, and this person would come in to alleviate that burden. If we have any position, any time where there's maybe not on high demand, this person will revert into buildings and grounds, and given that some of the duties that they will fulfill will be buildings and grounds related, any downtime that isn't being commanded by an outside group would revert to buildings and ground support. So this is a full-time position. Any part of their day that's dedicated towards non-MASD groups, so a community group, a youth sports group that's not MASD offered, that would be Fund 80. That would be a community service position. When they're working directly on behalf of an MASD event, or they're working in buildings and grounds, that would be a Fund 10 position. Anytime we introduce a Fund 80 expense, it has to get okayed by the board, because we levy that tax onto the community, and we need to know what we're levying for. Currently, it's just 2 school resource officers. We're looking to add this position right now. If and when we go back to offering our community education program that got put on hold, this person would work in tandem with the community education director. We're obviously not at that point right now, but again, if and when that comes back around and comes back on, this person would work underneath that person. What questions can I answer?
When would you project them starting?
Fairly soon. There's really no need to wait.
Okay.
We could post it rather quickly and move forward.
So part of it would be falling under the current budget, correct?
Yes, correct. When we get to the annual meeting, part of that meeting is to tell the community, here's what we spend in Fund 80. We would be talking about this at the next annual meeting then, to let the community know.
Is there savings on what is currently being done, overtime or anything like that, or what if?
Yeah, so because of the Affordable Care Act, we have to be guarded against the number of people that go over 30 hours in a week. So we have to put these hours, that when there's additional events, we have to put those hours on the full-time staff who are already at 40 hours. So naturally, that becomes overtime for them. So yes, there would be some offsetting that where we would be trading out overtime into the hours of this person. There might be some events still where there might be, you know, multiple people required, so there will still be overtime opportunities for our staff, but we would alleviate a great majority of that burden that they're working through right now.
Greg?
I'd like to make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion
Jill.
made, seconded. Jill, will you? Okay.
I'll second it. Good.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm sorry, Cherry,
At the meeting that I attended in regards to this, we were talking about the salary that is proposed on this job description. And Sean, at that meeting, you came forward and had a comment on that. I am just bringing my concern in regards to that.
So the hourly range is $20 to $28 per hour, commensurate with experience. Given the nature of working evenings and when weekends come up, it's a must. It's not there's no option there. This person taking this position has to understand that Saturdays and Sundays will occur for sure. There's a little bit of a premium that goes on that, but the wage range is $20 to $28 an hour.
But we'll be hiring at the lower end of that. That was my comment, I believe.
That is true. I just wanted it to be, because just in some of the other conversations we've had about finances tonight, and then we get to this one, and then it's kind of like thrown to the wind. So that's my only comment on it.
I believe we did get
We're done.
an approval in the vote. So anybody opposed?
Nope.
Okay, motion carries. The annual meeting date.
I'm proposing that we use, declare that September 27th, 2021 is our annual meeting date. We're going into a new biennial budget. I hope by September we know where things are at. So I'd rather not do an annual meeting in July or August where it's guesswork. I'd rather present something to the community that's more concrete or closer to concrete. I think September is a better date for that. So we're proposing that for the upcoming school year.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made, seconded by Cherry. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Food service wages.
All right, Pam Harris had joined us on Monday night, gave us a State of the Union on food service. As a part of that, she introduced a new position of assistant cook or area leader. They're kind of equivalent, but Pam did a good job of articulating the duties that these employees fill and how certain positions certainly carry greater responsibility. And to recognize that responsibility, she proposed that we introduce the assistant cook / area leader at $13 an hour to give it a 50-cent bump over the entry-level food service assistant position. She just wants to recognize those duties, but that also has a trickle-up effect to put 50 cents, additional 50 cents, on the other jobs above. So she has that outlined in the memo that was shared with you. The approximate cost is for this is $12,000 annually over a full school year. Right now, Pam is projecting that even in a tough year like we're in, it's going to be a break-even year. Food service is doing fine. This is affordable.
I make a motion.
Motion made by Cherry. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jill. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Official depository of Fund 46.
Okay, so we're just looking to make a transfer from one bank to another, that's all. And it's really for administrative ease. We currently have $3.3 million in Fund 46 that's being held by the local government investment pool, LGIP. we'd like to move that to Citizens Bank. The reason being is that as we allow for principals and other budget directors who have a surplus or they underspend their budget in 1 year, I have allowed for them to carry over that unused amount to the following year, and it allows for our people in the district who control a piece of the budget to better make better plans in the long run. They can, rather than relying on just a 1-year budget cycle, they can extend their rollover from year to year and devote their funds towards bigger ideas and bigger plans that they couldn't accomplish in a 1-year budget cycle. So by having multiple school, for example, Section School is attacking a playground project this summer. They put some budget aside from last year. They'll put some budget aside from this year. And Section's an example of a school that's using their budget to do long-range planning. Athletics did that also to a certain extent this past year. And as we have multiple sources contributing to Fund 46, we like to make sure we can track the ins and the outs so every school knows exactly where they stand. And working with Citizen better allows us to do that. So we're just looking to make this transfer to Citizens.
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Craig, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mary. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Unfinished business, superintendent's report.
And I had already talked about the K-12 virtual option for next year. Just also want to mention that the triad will be mailed to all homes in the district later this week or early next week, so you should look for that in the mail. I have one copy here, I'll pass it around.
Okay. Erica, do you have anything?
She fell asleep.
Oh, sorry, I do not.
Okay. No president's report then.
Go, Erica, do you have something?
She does not.
No, I do not.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I
All right.
misheard.
That's okay.
Okay, legislation and correspondence, donor recognition.
Yeah, so I want to make sure that we recognize some people tonight that have really done an outstanding job. First, the Village Pumper, the mobile station here in the village of Mukwonago. We want to thank them for their donation of $500 to Clarendon for math and science initiatives. It's important to note that this is a yearly donation that they make. This year, the $500 was used to bring a STEAM museum to Clarendon, which provided hands-on activities for students in science, technology, engineering, art, and math. So thanks to the Village Pumper. Also want to thank an Eagleville parent who did want to remain anonymous, but we should recognize that the donor gave $2,300 to Eagleville for the classrooms there. Each of the 5 classrooms received $300, and then the school $800. Also want to give a big shout out to our girls and boys basketball programs. As many of you saw, they did an outstanding job for raising money with the recent Make-A-Wish Foundation activity free throw contest, $83,000. So that $83,000 went to Make-A-Wish, and that was in the honor of MHS student Caden Stark. And if you recall, Caden passed away about a year and a half ago now, September a year ago. So outstanding job, boys and girls basketball programs. And also want to recognize Davis Vega. Davis is a 10th grade student at Mukwonago High School, one of our soccer players, and he was highlighted on, I don't know if you watched the Morning Blend show, but it's on TMJ4. He was highlighted on the show last week for his efforts to raise money to fight childhood leukemia. And he's part of the Student of the Year program and did a real nice job on the TV program. And I sent the link to you, so I hope you get a chance to watch that sometime. So a lot of great things going on. And it's really nice, again, to be able to spend this meeting talking about things that are non-COVID related, the strategic plan and things like this.
Any board member questions?
Is there
Are we going to look at that
executive
microphone
session
situation at the PAC
Yes.
and the
absolutely.
Wi-Fi?
there?
As a matter of fact, I know Tom has already emailed Joel Caldwell, so
Awesome.
we'll get that addressed.
I haven't had a perfect show yet.
Understand.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
The basketball team had a great finish to their season.
It was amazing. It was,
Great finish.
They were fun to watch. They
Yep.
were really fun.
Yep.
Even from an iPad, it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I should note also, and I know I emailed it to you on Friday, but the girls' gymnastics team, our gymnastics team qualified for the state tournament, and so outstanding job by them.
And we had some good swimmer.
Yes, you know,
Also.
and
Trying to think of his name.
I'll bring that for next, I forgot. Thanks, Art, that's my bad. I had that noted, and I'll post it, and of course, I forgot to bring it, so I will get that.
A lot of nice things
A
going on.
lot of great things going on,
Yep.
absolutely.
Is there going to be an executive session?
There is an executive session, yeah, we
Yeah.
need to go into executive session.
So, do we have a motion to go to executive session?
I will make that motion.
Second.
Motion Made and seconded. Sherry, will you
Erica Connor,
Yes.
Mary DeMo.